Hello everybody and welcome. Welcome to From the Horse's Mouth. The Splinter Group is really pleased to bring so many interesting people together. People with learning differences, parents, carers, care workers, professional sport organisations and businesses. It's also great to have a chance to share our own experiences together as part of the day and to have such an inspiring group of people speak about their experiences too. The founders, thanks to our funders, Awards for All, the Community Foundation, the RBS, and NatWest Skills and Opportunities Fund. We have helped to make this possible. Okay, we're now going to move on to the speakers. First on, we are here to have Alan Carrick with Northumberland County Council to open the conference. So now I'd like to hand over to Alan Carrick. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So thank you very, very much for inviting me today. What a positive event and what a positive agenda. My job is to be responsible for special educational needs and disability in Northumberland. It's a job I took up in March. I used to do a similar job in Newcastle. So really, I'm only a few months in and learning a lot of things about Northumberland, what Northumberland needs and what we should do together. But this is also a very interesting time in the world of politics and the world of law, because so much has changed regarding people who have a learning difference and might need advice or information or support of any kind. The government changed the law last year, and from birth to 25 years old, we have new responsibilities to work together, to make an offer, to give people opportunities to be successful. When I look down the agenda, it's all about that. It's about opportunities to be successful, to be independent, to find employment, or to work for yourself, to achieve things, and that is a wonderful agenda to be stepping into. Because the knowledge that you have in this room, the experience that you have in this room, and the ideas that you have in this room, I'm going to steal them all, and anything that we can apply in Northumberland to make Northumberland a more successful county and every individual more successful, we're going to have that. And if I can connect with people who are going to help us, not just today, but in the future as well, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
I am pleased to welcome Louis Barnett, the young entrepreneur and the chocolatier winner of the Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year in 2011. Louis received the Lord Charter Award for Excellence in Food Industry, presented to him at the House of Lords in 2009, and he was 17. Please welcome Louis Barnett.
My story began at the age of 11. I was quite a miserable school student, always had a lot of issues at school, got bullied all the way through my school life, and it got up to my Year 6 SATs. And I basically got told that unless I could improve my handwriting, I wouldn't be allowed to take the exam at all. I met a local teacher in the village. I live in the West Mids, if you can't tell by my accent. And the teacher I was working with as sort of extra home education was a specialist in learning disabilities. Within a couple of sessions with her, she said, well, I think you've got dyslexia. I thought that meant I didn't have to go to school at all. Wasn't quite the case. Shame. So I went back to school for a while. A lot of promises were made by obviously the local council. None of them were really kept. I sort of just about scraped through my SATs, ended up 6 weeks in secondary school, bullying escalated and various other things, and I ended up being taken out for home education. And it's a funny thing when doing that, because obviously, your entire life in school is planned out. Everything you do every single day, you've got the timetable, you know what you're going to do, and then suddenly everything ends and you've got to figure out what you want to do. And the only two things I'd really ever been passionate about was animals and food. So after a good couple of months of sort of just sitting around annoying my parents, I eventually started working at a falconry centre, so working in British conservation with birds of prey, owls and eagles and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I was cooking with sort of friends and family. That escalated. My auntie asked me to make her a cake for her 50th birthday, then loads of other family and friends, and so it started to snowball. And I ended up with about sort of 40 or 50 local people that were buying cakes and some truffles and chocolates off me. And then in December of 2000 and December 2005, I walked into my local Waitrose store, and at the time, kind of local food was becoming trendy. It was the in thing. And I walked up to the store manager and said, well, I'm a local guy. I make chocolate. Do you want some? And he explained it wasn't quite that simple. So he gave me a business card. I sent some products down to the post room at Waitrose. About 4 days later, I was sitting in front of the head buyer. And I'll never forget the moment when my parents walked out the room and the buyer looks at me and it's like, are they going to the car for something? I said, no, it's my business. So I became Waitrose youngest ever supplier at the age of 13. Thank you very much.
I would now like to introduce our second speaker, Gavin Harding, the Mayor of Selby. Gavin is active in self-advocacy with people with learning differences. He has been awarded an MBE for all his efforts and has recently joined NHS England's Better Care team. Please welcome Gavin Harding.
Hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a great honour to be here in the north of England, further north of England than Yorkshire and Humber. So I won't mention Newcastle or Sunderland football clubs because I know that causes rows here. Yeah, I've been on a journey that's I can't believe I'm in this journey actually, because I had to pinch myself when I was asked to be Mayor of Selby and the council as well, because it's been quite a tough ride for me. And I was the first one in the special needs department to go into a high school back in 1986, and we were the first in the country. But we didn't find out we were the first in the country until Valiant people came along, and all these other education bosses are saying, oh, we've got this brand new thing, we're moving people into high schools. And I said, hang on a minute, that's happened in 1986, this is 2003 you're doing this in. So you're a bit late behind the stages, and this was at an education conference, all these people. So I just got hold of the microphone and I said, what a load of rubbish you're talking, this isn't a new thing. So that was one thing, and it was quite tough for the first 3 years because we got quite bullied in the school, and the teachers worked hard and we worked hard to actually make relations and friends with people in there. And it was very hard to start with in the school, because I remember the most awful thing that happened. I got thrown in the canal by these kids, and when I was walking home one day, and that was quite hard, but the police were involved and quite a few people were suspended from the school as well for that as well. But then I went into working in a stable yard. I went to Selby College and became vice president of the Students' Union. And I was the first person with learning disabilities in the whole of the college in the region with a learning disability who made a grade up to vice president of the Students' Union.
Finally, we would like to welcome Maxine Francis Roper to share her experience of developing a career in writing and journalism. You may have seen her before. She has a focus on arts and education. Maxine is a successful advocate of positive message living with dyspraxia. Please welcome Maxine Francis Roper.
Well, thank you very much to Julia and Frank for inviting me to speak today. This is actually the third time I've spoken at a Splinter Group event, and it's a really great honour to be asked to speak again. I'm always especially happy to be in the North East, which is an area that's very sentimental to me, as I was a student here, and 10 years ago now, actually. It was quite frightening. And it's also where I was diagnosed with dyspraxia at the age of 21, and where a life which had previously been quite confusing and daunting a lot of the time started to make a little bit more sense. As you've heard, I'm a freelance journalist and writer. I'm 31 now, and I actually did my first big pieces of journalism when I was still studying for my GCSEs and A-levels. And around then, I also started designing basic websites, very basic by today's standards, but I used those websites to write about things that I was interested in for other people to read. So it's a platform for my writing. It was pretty clear from a very early age that that my strength was in writing, and that was a standout thing. And I always knew that whatever career I went on to do would involve it. And journalism seemed to be the obvious choice for that. And it was somewhere that I felt that I fitted in, which was a pretty rare feeling when I was young. After I went to university at Durham, I trained as a journalist, specialising in magazine features. I became involved in public awareness raising of dyspraxia because of an early experience in the workplace when I took on a job which was advertised to me as a writing job, but actually involved very little writing. You had to be able to spell, but that was about it. And what it did involve was a lot of admin at a very high level, which caused various dyspraxia-related problems. I was responsible for inputting TV listings onto a database, digital TV listings, and programs started to go out at the wrong times. And they didn't like that, strangely. Unfortunately, this was the peak of the recession, and so it was very difficult from there to get a paid job in journalism, which led me to going freelance. When I contacted an organisation down south where I live, which supports dyslexics and dyspraxics in the workplace, they invited me to speak about my workplace experience, and that then led into being asked to do a lot more speaking and training engagements with various businesses and organisations in how to support, identify and support people with dyspraxia. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, the rest of the day is over to the Splinter and some of the speakers again, doing some more sharing, more from the horse's mouth. And this is the kind of idea that we've got for the workshops. Everybody's different, so they'll all be a bit different. Just live with them and contribute as much as you can, please, because the room's full of people who've got so much to share. So what we've done is we've given some of the young people a chance to talk a bit about themselves, under some themes, and just exploring with you what it's been like for them. And then there's an opportunity for you to ask them and their co-facilitator questions, or to have a conversation amongst yourselves about what you've heard. And what the Splinter Group would really like you to do is, at the end of each of the workshops, to come up with 3 messages that you feel that you could share with everybody else. 10 workshops, 30 messages, and the Splinter Group wants to be able to take those away and work out how they can carry on having a positive role in making some of that work better for them and for everybody else. So that's the idea of the workshops. We've left the lists on the back table so you can see what you signed up for. And 3 workshops are going to be in here, so we'd really like you to occupy tables as far apart as possible. And ideally create a circle of chairs so that it's a bit more close to people and they're not too daunted by you sitting around tables staring at them. Okay, and thank you for being so coherent in your feedback and to the point. And what we've managed to do in the last few minutes is just to organise what you said under a few themes, and then we can take these back to the Splinter Group, who can work out how they feel about working on each one of them. So the first set that always comes up is around awareness and training. So people are saying particularly that employers and people who are involved in education are the key people who could do with more support and understanding tailored to their needs as well. And then also that from a training point of view and awareness raising, there's a need for people for families themselves when they're presented with a situation and not, it's a critical moment and not getting enough information themselves. So there's training outwards and training inwards. Okay. Thank you. Said a bit about this, so I'll put it down there. There's obviously been quite a lot of connecting going on today and ideas about how people could link. And I know that the Splinter Groups had lots of invitations, which is great. So the ideas that came up were maybe projects linking better, not just communicating, but linking, and opportunities maybe for joint training sometimes, because there's a lot of things happening in parallel. Lots about labels and diagnoses. And because some of the workshops were concentrating on that, there's lots of messages about a person doesn't need a label. I think one of the bottom one's a really good one. You don't need a label to fit in society. There are also things in there which are about diagnosis. So diagnosis implies a label. And we all know that there is a bit of a tangle in everybody's head around needing a label, not needing a label. I really feel that would be another brilliant day spent just on trying to sort that one out. How conditions can overlap with other things, which is very individual to the person, which was very well shown by the speakers, amongst others. So lots of things about stereotyping, uniqueness, and there are labels. Okay, I like the one about autism. Autism is one word, and everyone with ASD is different, and then everybody who doesn't have ASD is different. So you've got layers and layers of difference in there. Okay. I thought this was really good to have a few points which reinforce the whole purpose of what Splinter is about, which is to provide young people who don't usually have a say or a voice to have that. So, and good to have the feedback that it's insightful to hear about people's journeys, that there's value in people putting themselves on the line and sharing things, and that the sharing of things and the thinking it through actually helps people to achieve their goals. It's all linked up. Being as independent as possible, being a theme that came through it. Yes, there was a lot about support and bits of frustration about as ever, about the transition points in support and how do you navigate your way through. And something about independent living, and the range of opportunities needing to be wider to fit all those differences of need. And support for relationships, which is something which has come up a lot for us as well. So that's reinforced a lot of things that the Splinter Group members have said themselves. So what we'll do is we'll send that all out to you, and any more thoughts or ideas about how to take any of that forward, gratefully received. Okay. So I could show you the Waffling On website, but I would just like to please ask you to visit it. wafflingon.uk. There's no co, there's no org. wafflingon.uk, and on there you've got the opportunity both to take part in the quiz, all of which gets kept by us so we can see what people can know. And you've also got the opportunity to donate to the Splinter Group, which they would really love you to do because they've provided this free, and they really need funds to continue.